Hello everybody, welcome back. I'm Joey, you're watching VegasDtech. Got another interesting video for you today. I was out at the VA hospital day before yesterday, squaring up my father's affairs to get him into the nursing facility out there in Boulder City. And I had an interesting conversation with a couple of retired veterans. Actually, it was two veterans and a professor, a retired professor that also served in the military. And you know, the topic of interest came up, and anybody who's been watching any kind of television today can see the current affairs that's currently happening in our country right now, which is very bad. And although my channel is not political, you know, in nature, my channel does deal with resources, you know, of America. And I also wanted to talk about how those resources play into the political spectrum as it is right now. And these gentlemen here were talking, you know, at one time, these veterans were brother in arms, right? They were all born right around in their 40s. So at one point, they all served together, right? So regardless what your political alignments are, I'm not here to talk about left, right, Democrat, Republican. You have your right to align with, you know, whatever views you have. I mean, last time I checked, it's still America, and we're allowed to have our opinions, right? But these guys here, they both aligned, or the three of them aligned politically at one time. And of course now, they are different. What they were talking about, which was very interesting, was with the situation that's going on right now with inflation and all this nonsense that's happening down at the border, and with Texas, and the National Guard, you know, being deployed out there by the states, and then the Border Patrol, which is acting under the authority of the federal government. It's like we have brother in arms that at any point in time, things could get bad and it could turn into brothers at arms. Never in the entire time that I've been alive, living in America, have I felt more anxious than what I'm feeling right now. And I'm very concerned about a revolution possibly happening in America. And it was just interesting because as I was waiting to process my father's paperwork with the caseworkers, I listened to these guys talk, and they included me, you know, into their conversation. And what these folks were saying here is that they do believe that at some point there may be a separation of states. And it was interesting because everybody agreed that they don't believe that the United States could be, you know, amicably divided into just two parts. There's just, it wouldn't make any sense, you know. But it was really interesting to hear the professor talk about how he felt that the states would actually break up into territories, right? And so I wanted to discuss that with you today. And even though some of them are left, right, maybe one in the middle, who knows, they all had unique ideas that were congruent. I mean, even though they may lean left or right, they did have some ideologies that they both, or all of three of them, agreed upon, you know? And it was interesting when they talked about how these states or territories would be divided. The professor was saying, he laid it all out, what he thought would be. He said, first of all, he felt that the first territory would be the Pacifica, or Pacific Coast territories, which would be stuff like Washington, Oregon, California. Well, we know California, with like 40 million people there, their gross national product of just that state alone rivals most countries. As a matter of fact, you could actually take 2 or 3 countries and put them together, and California's GDP would actually still be more. If you can imagine, just one state in America could have more financial power and GDP than most countries generate on their own. But so we have what? Washington, Oregon, California, and, you know, theoretically speaking, Hawaii, of course, would be in there. Then they're even throwing in Nevada, New Mexico, Colorado, okay? And they're calling that the West Coast, okay? Or the Pacifica territories. And then, of course, you're going to have the Atlantic territories, which, of course, is going to be everything, you know, Northeast, which is what? Vermont, Delaware, Maine, New York, Jersey, Rhode Island, DC, all of that, right? So you would have Atlantica. And then, of course, you're going to have your middle states. And they would be normally aligned with the southern states as well. So you'd have middle America. Now, that all sounds good, you know, and of course, when you think about Texas, Texas has always talked about seceding. You know, they've talked about that for a long time now. But they said that with California being out of it and New York being out of it, Texas would be the next biggest state in the remainder of what used to be the United States of America. And so they may not want to secede, and they may just enjoy being the biggest state of what's left of the territories, right? So I'm looking at those territories there, and I'm like, okay, well, what's up with Alaska? And the professor was like, he honestly believes that in a situation like that, Alaska would probably be sold to Canada, because Alaska was actually purchased from Russia in 1897 or 1867. I think it's 1867. So he feels that probably Alaska would just get sold to Canada. And then, of course, Hawaii would also be a part of that Pacifica territory. And then I'm like, okay, and then what about Rhode Island and Puerto Rico? And they felt that those states would probably be purchased by the Atlantic territory so that people would have a way to vacation. So the Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico would be the same as Hawaii would be to the West Coast. And I was like, okay, that's great. So we have 3 basic territories that could be separated. But then I asked them, okay, so far the conversation that they've had has been politically inspired, because they're saying all of the states that are around the Great Lakes would probably align with the Atlantic states due to its economics. Economically, you could have shipping across the Great Lakes to bring goods, okay? So I said, so while we're on the topic of that, my question is, even though you guys can divide the states up, you know, politically into factions, you have blue states that control all of the coast, the East Coast and the West Coast. How are we gonna get goods across the, you know, the middle states? Because here's the problem. I asked them, what about resources? What about resources? What about water? What about natural gas? What about, you know, fossil fuels, oil? We all know that California produces most of the vegetables and produce is actually produced by, what, Southern California. And I don't think that it would go over well if the East Coast couldn't get, you know, enough of its produce. No lettuce, no tomatoes, you know, cabbage, fruits and stuff like that. They couldn't get it because California rules all that. And then what happens here along the Colorado River, when the water comes flowing down, it flows through many states, and it goes through Republican and Democrat states. And what happens if people start damming up the water and not letting it flow, you know, the way that it should? And there we go again. What about fossil fuels? The oils down in Texas and so forth. How about that? I mean, how are we going to divide resources equally if we're divided into territories, and each territory has a certain type of a resource that they control? What will that do for the remainder of the United States? I mean, what kind of a fight again would that entail? So even though the conversation that they had was pretty good about us being able to, you know, divide the country into territories, maybe 3 or 4 different territories, because politically it doesn't look like we're going to be aligned for too long, the discussion came to a stalemate again as to how could you amicably divide these states into territories and also amicably divide the resources. You know, I mean, as the United States of America, all the resources are shared, you know, and that's how we've been able to sustain as a country all this time. So it was just interesting to hear, you know, these veterans talk about this. And I just, you know, what do you guys think? I thought it would be something interesting to hear you guys and your opinions of that. Do you think right now that, like I said, setting aside politics, man, we don't want to talk about politics. You know, I mean, like I said, I'm not a political channel. My channel normally has to do with resources. You know, I've been very concerned about the water situation out at Lake Mead. And, you know, when that resource was dwindling, things were looking pretty dire. And so I just wanted to see how resources played into the whole political theater. And I just thought that I would ask you guys your opinion of that and what you guys thought. Do you think that America will ever, you know, are we headed towards some type of a revolt? Do you think there will be a revolution? Can America continue to be united? Have we been divided for so long, you know, just silently been divided? And do you think that there will be a division of territories like I spoke of? I mean, is it too far gone to think that that might happen? Can that be done without violence? Can we divide the resources of this country, you know, fairly amongst all the territories? How would that play out? It would be interesting to hear you guys. It would be interesting to hear what you guys think about that. I do care about the resources of America. I've been reporting on the resources of America, you know, via Hoover Dam, Colorado River, and Lake Mead for a few years now. And how does this play out? Very interested to hear your guys' comments on that. What do you guys think? If you guys could leave your comment down below and tell me, have you thought about this? What would happen to you if that was a situation and we did divide into territories? Would you move? Would you stay where you're at? Would that even be a consideration? What do you guys think? I'd love to, you know, hear your opinions, you know, share your thoughts. Were these guys at the VA hospital onto something? You know, were they talking, you know, logically about the possibility of a, you know, a dissolve or a breakup into territories of the United States? Do you guys feel that the United States is still united? Or are we just like silently divided right now? Or are we heading that way? It was just very interesting. Like I said, you know, trying to take care of my father, getting his paperwork processed with his caseworkers over at the VA hospital in Boulder City, listening to some retired veterans, you know, shoot the breeze and talk about the state of affairs that's going on in this country right now. Like I said, I'm not a political channel. I report on Lake Mead. I report on the resources that's out there. And every once in a while, I do some reviews on things just to keep it fun, e-bikes and stuff like that. But yeah, if you guys could do me a kindness, if you like these walk and talks and you specifically like this type of format that I'm doing right now, do me a kindness. You know, give me a thumbs up, like if you can, subscribe. It helps my channel grow and tries to get me back on track again to grow this channel. Try my best to get back out here for you, make some material that maybe we all could use, and I just like to sit back and talk with you. So that's everything I got for you on this little walk and talk. I'm Joey, you're watching VegasDtech. You guys have a wonderful afternoon. Take care of yourself. I'll see you on the next upload. Bye now.